Hey guys, welcome back to Trekyards. I'm Captain Foley.
I am Commander Cockins.
And today we got some new Discovery information, sort of. We got a picture of the side of the saucer, the front of the saucer of the Discovery, and a little figure standing on that. So that gives us a sense of scale.
Yes.
And we thought this might be worth talking about.
Yes, it's funny that Eric Henry actually posted this on the page, and I was like, oh, I see it. Then we started filming our own content today, and I saved it, and then you mentioned, oh, I should do an episode on it. I was like, aha. So it's nice to see a high-res image. But, Stuart, this is... If you look at this... Well, guess what? We have a full 3D model of Discovery, at least a fan version made by our wonderful Trekyards team. So we can extrapolate, can't we, Stuart?
We can.
But the obvious...
Wow. Well, I gotta say, the first thing I thought when I saw this was, yep, it's thinner than I thought. I thought it'd be 2 decks. It's obviously 1 deck.
Yeah.
Because with the placement of those windows, they're at head height. One person can walk through there, which makes it very thin.
Yeah, it's funny.
Estimation.
I've been looking at scale recently for another episode, and yes, you put a man in the middle of a saucer. Okay, you can match up. So there's a bit of weight, a bit of thing either side. But yes, the window isn't stomach level, so you have to fit exactly that amount. So yeah, it's just 1 deck. So very, very thin ship. But and again, I think this is partially just an artist's interpretation. I don't think this is meant to be exactly scale. Just meant to look small and teeny. Although that said, you're right with the deck size. That's basically what it should be. So I did some photoshopping. The next picture shows, if you take the literal person as a scale, the actual edge of the saucer is only 2 people tall.
Yeah.
So pretty minimal.
Which makes sense because the corridors are at least 8 feet high internally, and then there's equipment and then the hull plating and stuff. So yeah,
and that is the thinnest point as well. That's without the gradient, but it's just a bit I can. And it's obviously the main character. She's wearing the spacesuit, so that's probably got a little bit of high texture. But if you're the next picture, well, I sort of did a render. If you're the next picture, there's my render next to their render. I thought, well, hey, let's try and sort of vaguely match it because hey, 6-foot person, roughly equate. Again, this is rough with rough, but it's giving us a much closer scale because the scale that we got much earlier on in the production, like 6 months ago, this is almost a scale of Discovery, was very different to this scale. So straight away, we're closing that margin of getting it within. I mean, you're not going to look like 100 meters different. This is going to be roughly what they're telling us the scale is, and this is sort of a rough Photoshop I did today. So Stuart, now I have scaled our ship based on roughly the ship, and actually this is a very annoying thing to have to make because AR model is not perfect, but also the angle they've done is almost not doable with the way the shapes are. It's really bizarre. I don't understand. But hey, I try to replicate as close as possible for what that's worth.
You did a good job.
Thank you. So the next picture, that is this conceptual scale. If this Discovery is only 1 deck big, and is the Connie saucer meant to be 2 decks big? 2 decks tall at the rim?
Yeah, that's what I've always imagined.
So that's what it would be at this scale. From the side view, the top view is even more illuminating. Thoughts?
It's tiny. It's not tiny, but there's not a lot of internal volume if that's the case. And then take it for what it is, guys. This is our 3D model, so it's not going to be exactly like the actual one in the show, but damn close.
Yeah, we're now, like I said, putting the margins. It's not going to be, if that scale's right, it's not going to be 18 meters bigger. It's going to be maybe 20 meters bigger, 30 meters shorter. It's going to be in this now range, if that scale is to be believed.
But the bridge seems too small. I think the bridge should be sized to the Connie, which would make the saucer the same thickness as the Connie.
Which the NX-01 is. We know it has a lot of decks. It's like, what, 29 decks? No, it's less than that. Is it 24 decks?
For the
Connie?
refit?
No, well, the main Connie.
I think it's 24. Now you got me, because 21, maybe. I don't know. I'd have to... I'm sorry. I don't know off the top of my head.
But many. And you can see by the window placement a lot in all the areas, whereas this is a lot less. Although the window size don't really match up to this scale. But yeah, very, very... I mean, it's very, very thin anyways as a ship. Clearly smaller than we thought. And we were sort of being told it was big, which was good. We didn't want the whole JJ-verse huge ships. They don't make any sense, at least in the Trek verse, so it's kind of good. And if it's an older ship than the Enterprise, and that was a big ship, and the biggest ship at the time, it should be smaller. 20 years before, good, go for it. That absolutely should be. It's just amazing the thinness of the proportions theoretically.
Yeah, I think our version here needs to be scaled up a little bit, personally, to match the Connie bridge and stuff. But we're basing this on the size of the figure, and that could be just an artist's interpretation as well. So yeah, take it for what it is, guys.
Yep, we just want to put a little bit of work in to show you conceptually what they're telling us the scale is about. But even more interesting is the top view, because I really dig this. For me, it's as a functional something in that the saucer has got bigger, and the engines have got smaller. The secondary hull's got smaller. They've reproportioned everything, but they've refined certain shapes down. But it feels a lot more in proportion now with this. It's like the highlight was to give it a huge secondary hull space in the width. The engines have been, like I said, been refined down. The saucer we can now push bigger. What do you think about this then?
This bothers me a little bit. I mean, I appreciate the size for what it is, because I mean, for the era, this is what I consider right. Maybe it's a little too small. Again, I think sizing up the saucer a bit to match more of the Connie size. Now, we don't know if the bridge module on the Discovery is just a top deck, or if it's the whole internal ball that's maybe the bridge. Because if you match up that ball size with the bridge on the Connie there, they're roughly the same size. But we don't know the deck layout for the Discovery yet or anything like that. So
and I'm sure it's going to be bigger, because bigger equals more movement room with stuff.
And look how tiny the windows are on this top view based on that. So, but then again, our model again, guys, I just want to stress that.
Although it's our model based on the latest concept drawings and the real one. But again, we asked some insiders, and the proportions at least are right for the most part. And again, this is us trying to work it out and give you the information. But it's and again, I will talk about the NX in a minute. Sorry, things moved. But yeah, the NX-01, the interesting thing about the NX-01 is that the saucer was the exact same width as the Connie. So the jumping technology was, well, now it's no longer this flat ship of 5 decks. I think 5 or 6 decks. But then you have the secondary hull, all this extra space, and you push everything out. That's where the scale comes from. It's still the same size, so to make a distinctly smaller primary hull and have cutouts. I mean, the NX-01 only had 100 people crew, or like 90. It's a very, very small crew, 105, something around those. Obviously, now you've got secondary hull to put quarters in and such. But you're not looking at anywhere near as many as the Connie, anywhere near. So smaller profile, not a ship of the fleet, not deep space exploration. Again, the saucer, these separation planes, that's going to be a part of it, because it's such a, obviously, form follows function, we hope, reason. Otherwise it's just a daft, one-of-a-kind, failed experiment of a design, because it's never ever featured again. So it must do something special, which means this ship is a special, and because of the huge shuttle bay, you can... Well, sorry.
I was just going to say, sorry for jumping in there. We hear the captain say we're figuring out a new way to fly or whatever. Yes. Now, if you look at the Discovery engines, we're kind of going off topic here for a second, but looking at those Discovery engines from the top, they're very refit style. So I wonder if they were testing the refit technology. You get the rainbow effect when you go to warp and stuff, which is a little bit different than the older style. And maybe they ran into some road bumps so that the engines weren't developed they expected, and it came out later as the refit engines. Well,
that's the joke, isn't it? I mean, everything's so fluid, because the Cage Enterprise has been out for a while, so those are older nacelles, whereas the Discovery is meant to be newer. I think we heard somewhere it was meant to be newer, especially in the Shinzu, so therefore the engines will be newer. So yeah, having it push that one step to the refit, you can sort of argue that it could be the earliest of the refit style. They never upgraded the Connies because they didn't feel the need to. It was outdoor exploration, and then boom, it gets fully refitted to the full version. So you can sort of argue that.
And maybe that's why this was the next step in the warp scale evolution as well. The warp scale upped once we got the refit engines, maybe a little. So, just a thought.
Well, it's also got the Aztecing, so,
Yeah.
Because we can't think of, I guess, if we don't think of the TOS Enterprise as the newest of the fleet, we think of the Cage era as the newest of the fleet, and this is the newest of the fleet, or one of the newer style ships, then the Connies are more just, they upped the game so much they were able to stay consistent, upgrading the weapons and shields and such, but not revolutionising it until obviously the refit. It kind of works better. But I'll go back. If this is what this one picture is telling us, it's a cool picture, but we can make a mount out of a molehill when they try and tell us these things. But look at that shuttle bay. Huge. I mean, what,
Yeah.
2.5 times the width?
Yeah, about that.
And those shuttle bays can fit one actively, but you could probably actually scoot 2 in very happily, just not launch them easily. So I mean, if it continues, you're looking at more of a Kelvin, USS Kelvin style. It could launch, 6, 8, 12, maybe, if it really tries to push it, shuttles.
Yeah, because we don't know how deep the hangar deck goes, or whether that whole secondary hull is hangar deck. That might be a thing. We just don't know. Because
if I was designing this ship and trying to really make it fit with what we do and don't know, the engines are this one step ahead. They're, first gen refit engines. The NX, the Connie is like Gen 12 of the NX-01 engines. It's that sort of styling, and the refit is Gen 1 or I guess Gen 3 or something, and then TNG is the next gen after that, which actually kind of makes sense. Next gen, it's those progressions.
And don't forget about the Phase 1 engines. Should they exist in canon?
In Phase 2?
Fit in their Phase 2, sorry. They'll fit
Phase
in
1 engines. Yeah.
Shut up. So but we don't know the story, what the Discovery was built for, but that makes sense. But this sizing doesn't. I mean,
Well, no, it might do, though, because smaller ship, warp bubble, you're going to hit that warp 7.8, warp 8, smaller ship, less power to do the fast warp bubble. It's designed for speed, and then all the hull room for the evacuation or colonization of the shuttle bay, and then separation planes of the bridge. Maybe the bridge is meant to land and then be a mobile outpost. Maybe it's a colonization ship. Maybe the entire middle bit drops down, lands, shuttles the rest of it. Yeah, long range colonization ship. I mean, would that not fit the bill? Because the Constitution class can't separate and then reconnect properly, but this part, if it just has pieces that can come out and then go back in, I mean, this would be kind of a perfect colonization ship for that reason, don't you think?
Yes. Yeah, and that kind of suits with the name Discovery too, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't fit the storyline whatsoever, fighting the Klingons, but that if they'd announced this was the new, Star Trek Discovery, a new ship going on the outstretches of the Beta Quadrant, and this was the ship, and they said it's a new experimental or new top of the line TOS era colonization craft. What do you think under that context?
I'd be fine with it. I'd still, if it's this size though, I'd still be it's a little too small to be out that far.
Well, if it's not going to come back though.
Yeah, I know.
Take out the science labs, take out the weapon places, take out the, boil it down.
It sounds like a boring story to me. Just go out there and colonize and, yeah.
Well, then, maybe find races that attack you. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, but anyway, the next picture. I hear you all asking, what about the NX-01? The ship, 70 years before this.
Yeah.
Well, this saucer is infinitely thicker, which is bizarre.
This is just ridiculous. This is obviously the wrong scaling, is what we're saying.
Oh dear, it's interesting. I mean, just the deflector.
It looks like they're all flying information, and it's way back farther. Yeah. No, it doesn't work. The bridge sizes, again.
Oh, the bridge size doesn't work with that really at all.
Unless the whole ball thing is, or half the ball is the bridge or something on the Discovery. This doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. Even the nacelles are just so tiny. On the Discovery, I don't know. This is the wrong scale and this is just based on the person standing on the saucer.
Yeah, with God knows what angle, God knows what focal length, it all distorts it. As soon as I made it orthographic, it changed the feel as well. But if it is one deck tall, that about matches up the NX-01's saucer, which is one deck. It just then obviously expands out a lot, so it's 5 decks obviously in the middle, the rest of it's a lot less. Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't work for me.
It just shows you how Star Trek feeling the NX feels, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, well, it has every bit of a Trek ship all combined into one flat layer, but boy, is it not flat. And then you have Discovery, it's just like a flat pancake saucer with a flat neck and then a flat... Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not as impressed as I thought I was going to be with the scaling.
But let's go back to the first picture again, because, again, this is all extrapolated off this picture. But in this picture, the ship feels huge. A person standing there. But as soon as you compare it to what either existed at the time or existed 70 years earlier, suddenly it's like, again, go back one step. Ooh, wow, it's so tiny. That's the thing about context. And again, back to the first picture. That's why we do fleet yards and such, because comparing a ship in different universes, it's the biggest of this era. Guess what? It's not huge compared to this other ship, you know. Or guess what? Like, we could walk the entire saucer in 5 minutes because, or 2 minutes because it's so small. Perception is very important, and again, go to picture 4. You know, it's about roughly. Again, the window size is a texture. That's whatever we did just to roughly make sense, but it's not far off. You know.
Yeah. And to think this is just, you know, an artist rendering of what it could be. Yeah, maybe, but when you think about where the window placement is on the rim there, it makes sense that that's one deck. To me, anyway.
Well, it can't be 2. I mean, it can't be 2. The rim.
Unless it's 2, but the top deck has ceiling to wall windows, or ceiling to floor windows, and then the next deck has no windows. Then it could be 2 decks, but not based on that person size. Is what I'm saying. So
yeah.
Some people will say it's just an artist rendition. You got the scaling wrong. Well, we're trying to work it out logically.
They released it. We're just presenting it.
Yeah.
But even at that scale rendering, I mean, the ship doesn't get much thicker. So the ship looks like 3 decks, maybe?
It could be that there's a single deck around the rim, and then it steps in it, and there's 2 decks, and then the outer ring is kind of in the middle of those 2 decks. I don't know. You could argue that there's different leveling as far as decks go, moving back and into the saucer, but it seems like a stretch. It really does.
So yeah, there you go, guys. New picture, new discovery.
Ha!
That was not trying to be a joke, and I realized, oh wait, they named the show Discovery. Hope you guys enjoyed this interesting, attempting look at what it is. I mean, I think I found quite a good justification for it all. I don't think there'll be anything to do with the storyline whatsoever, because it's doing its own thing. But hey, we're just here to look at the facts, call out what's good, what's bad, and try and bring it into context, because this is meant to be Prime Trek, which means we can compare it to other Prime things, even if they're visually rebooting to TOS Connie look. You know, that still exists in this timeline. You can't say just because visually rebooting it doesn't mean the Connie doesn't still exist. It still is there. You're just changing this one element of your own verse. So it's interesting to see. Yeah.
So guys, put your comments below. What do you guys think of this argument? What do you guys think based on this picture? Let us know how right we are, how wrong we are. Just let us know. I'm looking forward to your comments.
There are always potential reasons, as you can tell. We look forward to hearing everything they say in basically a month.
Yep.
New Star Trek TV show we've been asking for since before we started Jurt. It's about here.
Exactly. So looking forward to that. So anyway, guys, do the regular things like donate if you can. There's links below for Patreon and Trekyards.com. Head over there. Other than that, just share this video around, and let's try to get the Discovery ball rolling here, because we're building up to the release of the show, and there's going to be some exciting stuff happening after that happens. So
we have all the plans. It's going to be a hell of a fun time.
Absolutely fun.
In
anyway,
sun.
Until next time in a new Discovery.
Yes.
I'm Captain Foley.
I'm Connor Cockens.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.